Look, throughout this time, we've not only had to contend with the challenges presented by this terrible virus, we're also bearing witness to an enormous amount of social unrest, high-profile killings, protests, riots, wash, rinse, repeat. And then there's this ceaseless cacophony of emanating from social media and cable news, our political leaders. There's lots of pissing matches and lots of people shouting each other down. And I'll be honest, there are weeks when doing this feels strange. And this is one of those weeks. Today is one of those days, knowing what's gone down and still going down in Kenosha, Wisconsin, more senseless shootings and the terrible fallout from that. But, and you knew there was a but there, right? Because I'm sitting here now. There's an age-old saying that originated either in the circus or the theater, maybe both, that the show must go on. And since real life feels so much like a circus or a bizarro stage show right now, and also this is the gig I signed up for in good times or bad, I figured I should bucker up and do what I do. And besides, I'm thinking we could all use a good stiff drink right now. So, like that. Okay, let's do this. All right, as always, I invite you to check out my podcast, What We're Drinking with Dan Dunn, which I Love Cats magazine described as like Meow Mix, based in chicken flavor for the ears. The real magazine, by the way. Google it. I Love Cats. The recent guests on the show, Dan Aykroyd, Sasha Compare. We got Andy Roddick coming up. Just booked today. Pitbull, not the dog, the singer, no hair. That guy going to be on the show. If you've got questions or comments, there's a chat box. To which side is that on? Is it on the left? This way? Any thought that pops into your head that you'd like to hurl our way, Evan and I will try to get to those throughout the show. As always, we're giving away a Flaviar membership on this episode. Flaviar, of course, is a club. By the way, I get this wrong a lot, so I'll be reading this part. It's a club that brings together fine spirits enthusiasts from all over. Every quarter, Flaviar sends you samples, and they provide access to exclusive, highly allocated bottles you won't find anywhere else. Plus, we're always working to keep you educated and entertained with booze-themed content like this. It's an amazing way to discover new flavors and bond with people who like to drink. You can trust me on this, because I'm not only Flaviar spokes guy, I'm also a member. That's from the Hair Club for Men. Speaking of which, thinking of turmoil and strife, how many bad haircuts can I give myself during quarantine? Like this one? This is called the I tried for Joe Strummer and ended up like Elmo. Okay, so how we're giving away the membership, and this is what we're going to do. Evan, our guest, was a baseball player, inspiring. He had ambitions to go pro until he had an injury. We'll talk about that. I just hurt myself doing that. Demonstrating the injury, I hurt myself. And it also turns out Evan's from just outside of Philadelphia, my hometown. So the question tonight, which you will put your answers in the comments, name the 3 best Philadelphia Phillies of all time. 3 best Phillies. Put them in the comments. Now, some of you, I'm going to judge, and so is Evan, and we already know. We got it in our head. There might be some, couple people come in with the same winning answer. So the tiebreaker will be, because Evan, it's painful to say this given where he grew up, but he's a Mets fan. This is his father, maybe he's from New York, so he's a Mets fan. It's okay. I forgive him. But the tiebreaker then will be the greatest Met of all time. If you can think of a Met that was good, they're live. The greatest Met of all time is the tiebreaker. So you're going to put 3 Phillies and then 1 Met. That's your entry. Try to win this Flaviar membership. And speaking of memberships, Flaviar is offering a 10% sound. That's how I get my brain and my mouth synced up here. All right. Oh, yeah, now I'm good. All right. Flaviar is offering a 10% discount on memberships if you use the discount code NightCap. And you might be wondering where we came up with that. It's the name of the show, NightCap Live. So put NightCap in, and you get 10% off. And if you sign up a friend, they'll get 10% off. If you signed up like 10 people, it would be nothing. 10, 0. Okay. As I mentioned, we're drinking mezcal tonight on the show. Not so long ago, Americans' exposure to mezcal was typically limited to a bottle of Monte Alban at a rowdy college party, along with urban legends about what would happen to you if you drank the worm. But thanks to some enterprising importers, over I'd say the last decade or so, we've seen a massive rise in quality mezcal being available here in the United States. You can think of mezcal as tequila's earthier, rougher-hewn cousin. It's made in a process similar to tequila. Well, tequila is mezcal, but we'll go there later. It's made in a process similar to tequila, but with an extra step in which the piña from the agave plant is pit roasted. It's in the ground, it's pit roasted, and that gives you that smoky flavor that you know and love about mezcal. Not dissimilar to the smoke that you'll get in like a peaty scotch, okay? And like scotch, mezcal rewards experimentation. Once you start exploring, you'll find a dizzying universe of varieties of different mezcals, and we've got 3 great ones on the show tonight. I'm going to be drinking those with the man I'm about to bring on. Our guest tonight is an actor. He is known for his roles in X-Men, Days of Future Past, Bone Tomahawk. Saying that movie, I'm scared to say it. That movie shook me. Bone Tomahawk. The show Easy, which I love too. Discovery Canada's Frontier. Please welcome Pride, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and a fellow Temple University Owl, go Owls, Evan Jonigkeit. How are you, man?
I'm good, man.
Sorry,
How are you? It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's good to see you, man. And I was excited about this. I always love connecting with people from you grew up in Bucks County, which is real close to where I grew up.
I know. Yeah. It was a cool place to grow up. You know, I went to a high school called Neshaminy High School. My folks are still there. My whole family still lives right around where I was reared. Yeah.
So you were a baseball player, and you were going to play ball.
I wasn't an aspiring pro. I think that is very generous of you, and I really appreciate it. But I would say that is an exaggeration. I was a pretty good baseball player. I had planned on playing in college, and then I had an injury, and I kind of knew I wasn't going to be a pro anyway. But so I just started figuring out what else I was going to do, which is how I wound up into acting.
So what exactly did you try out? Like, how did you find acting?
Oh, you know what? There was only a couple things I was really interested in when I first was going to college, and the first was religion. I was really fascinated by, and the other was communication. Mass communication theory, which is sort of tangential to religion. And so those were the 2 things I was interested in. In the communications department at Temple University, there was this interdepartmental major, which is what I wound up being. And I just took an acting course because I thought it might be easy and fun. And I had really enjoyed acting in summer stock and stuff when I was a kid. And it was something I was interested in, and I really was I was keen on the idea of trying acting from the get-go of getting into college. But then I took this one acting class, and as just a sort of an easy credit is what I thought it would be. And then the acting teacher was really complimentary and asked me to audition for one of the school shows, and it just started snowballing from there. And then I saw some amazing theater companies in Philadelphia that sort of changed my brain about what theater could be and what acting could be, and it really started to become a thing I was passionate about. And that's kind of how it shook out.
And then, what was your first break? What was the thing that set you on the path to where you are now?
Well, yeah, that's one of the cool, or one of the things I'm most grateful for in my career so far is just that it's been kind of like just a sort of a steady stream of experience as opposed to like, oh, there's your big break. Um, I had like a lot of really formative experiences when I was in Philly and I was working in Philly theater, and it's a really vibrant community. It's a really cool theater community. If people are familiar with Chicago theater, it's kind of like that. You have a lot of not-for-profit theaters that make everything from really populist, well-produced Broadway style productions to very avant-garde movement-based theater companies and everything in between. And so I got to work in a lot of different companies in Philly before I got my first show that was on in New York, which was on Broadway. And so that was like what brought me to New York. I didn't even have any real aspirations to move out of Philly or be in New York. I just had this agent in New York, and this audition kind of came up, and I was in between a couple of plays in Philly, and was 7 days away from closing on a house in Philly, in Fishtown. And I just
should have bought that one, man. You should have got that
I
house.
know, man.
It's going through the roof now.
Every day I think about, oh no, not every day, but like, you know, every time I go back, I see how much Philly's changed in like these particular areas, like Northern Liberties and Fishtown. And at the time, I was kind of just, you know, I was broke and I couldn't even, there was no way I could have bought that house and moved to New York at the same time. And so I had this like little pocket of time in between a couple plays, and I went in on this audition. It just happened to be with Kathleen Turner, and I had this like big 6-month pre-Broadway tryout. Came into Broadway, closed in the first week, but in that week of being in New York and people kind of seeing it, some folks were, for whatever reason, were really generous with their time and their attention, and gave me some other opportunities. And so that was kind of like the break into New York. But like I said, there were so many cool theater experiences before I got to New York. I was working for, you know, nearly almost the better half of a decade in Philly.
What was your first film or TV?
I mean, really, my first, you know, film or TV job was X-Men, which is crazy, you know. Like, so I just like I go on to do a couple more plays in New York, and I wind up at a really cool agency, UTA, and there are some folks there that had seen me do these plays, and the first audition, I had 3 auditions in my first day at the agency, and one of them was for X-Men, and you know, my number just kind of got called. So it's surreal, to say the least. Yeah, I was just like, oh, that's so weird. And like, you know, it was this character of Toad, which was just very brief in Days of Future Past. It was meant to like grow, but by the time it had the potential to grow into a bigger thing, I was kind of off doing other TV stuff and stuff that I wasn't in makeup for, you know, 20 hours a day and sitting in a chair for 4 hours just getting the makeup applied. So it was, you know, it was a really cool first experience in TV and film that I was completely unprepared for, and then like really sort of learned TV and film in the years to come with a bunch of indies and some TV stuff, and that's like, but it was a bizarre sort of happenstance to have X-Men be your first thing.
That's crazy.
I know.
I think the first time I saw you was in Bone Tomahawk, which is a great movie, but It's hard to watch, man. It is it's one of the more violent, and I don't want to give it away if anybody hasn't seen it, but you play Deputy Nick, I think, in that movie.
Yeah. You
got a rough go of it in that movie.
Yeah, I sort of bookend this film with Richard Jenkins. I'm like working with icons, you know, Kurt Russell. It's like, these guys.
Patrick Wilson, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, you mean Richard Jenkins?
Well, Patrick Wilson was in the movie.
Oh
too.
yeah, Patrick Wilson too. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like such an amazing group of people to be working with, and that was pretty soon after X-Men, and yeah, it was a
watch. I'm telling you out there, if you haven't seen it, watch it, and you know,
it's disturbing.
Evan right now,
it's really disturbing.
Evan right now, like look at him now, take a good look at him, and then wait for Bone Tomahawk. I don't want to. I'll say no more other than.
What I will say about that movie that's really cool is Craig Zahler, the director and writer of that film, he was really committed to these super wide shots, which are just like really strange, like that feel very much like an old Western, and is why a big part of why that movie feels so uncomfortable to an audience member, because you're not like just welcomed in all the time. Like there's like a real suspense just in the cinematography of that film that makes it pretty cool. You know, I think it's a cool one, yeah.
And then I saw you in Easy, Joe Swanberg's series. I think it was for Netflix, right?
Yeah, for Netflix.
Was really great. I don't know if they're bringing that back, but you had a really good part in there with you and Dave Franco played brothers. Yeah,
it was me and Dave Franco, and then Aya Cash was my wife, and Zazie Beetz was Dave's girlfriend, and we just had this like sort of cool. It was a really cool storyline of these two brothers like dealing with a brewery and like, you know, making beer together and having two different philosophies about how to do it. But like it was much more about like this family dynamic between them, obviously, and it was great. But what's the best thing about that series, if you ask any of the actors that are on it, is the experience of making it. Because you just like go to Chicago for a week or 8 days, and like you hang out and you work really hard, but like you go out to these amazing restaurants with Swanberg, who's like, you know, like a real, he's like a real sensualist. You know, he like loves great food. He loves great cocktails. He like, and he has this great community that he's built up over the decades of him making stuff. And so it's like you go a little summer camp in Chicago, even if it's a dead of winter, you feel like it's a really cool escape. And it's not a long commitment because we're in an anthology series, so it's usually just one episode. We had 2 episodes one season, but like it flies by, the making of it, which is super fun.
Yeah, great show. I really enjoyed that one. Now, I think we should probably we've been doing this now for 20 minutes and we haven't had a drink yet, or I have, but whatever. But you want to get into some mezcal?
Yeah, man. I'm drinking the Ray Compera.
So yeah, what we have tonight, it's a box, it's a Flaviar box called the Mezcalistas, and you get 3 mezcals with this. And again, the first one is the Ray Compera, and let's jump in there with this. This is a so that's A. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. Let me just pour myself some here. Yeah.
Can I ask you, how did you become such a connoisseur of liquors? Like, how did you become like such a connoisseur?
I'm an Irish Catholic from Philly. So let's say it's in my blood. It's in my blood, my bones, veins, everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I stumbled into it, pun intended. I was writing I was a writer. I was a columnist at a newspaper, and I had been in Aspen, Colorado, which is funny because, you know, where I grew up, I never heard of Aspen, you know, but I ended up there for almost 5 years. And when I left, I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I was in columnist down there. I was doing pretty well, and I got a gig with a magazine to go do a freelance assignment in Scotland. And I didn't have any idea. I was like, wait, how am I getting there? Like, oh, I was such a rube. They said, well, they'll fly you over and you're going to tour the Hebrides, the islands. And I did it. And that kind of got the bug there. And then I started writing a column for, remember the Metro, the free daily that was in New York and Philly? So yeah. I started writing. I was writing for.
Using that.
What's that?
I said I've had some bad reviews in that publication.
Not me. But I was writing for a TV show out here, Talk Soup. I moved to California. I was writing for Talk Soup, and then that ended. I needed a gig. My buddy was running Metro. He said, "You want to write some movie reviews for us?" I said, "Sure." And then I pitched him on this idea of a drinking column, and he said, "What do you mean? Like you're going to get drunk?" And I said, "No, this is 18 years ago." And I said, "No, like a food critic, but of alcohol." And this was at the beginning of what we would call the craft cocktail, resurgence. And he said, "Okay." And I started writing it. It was called The Imbiber. And then a couple of years later, Playboy hired me to come do it for them. And that's how I got into it. Yeah.
That's a cool story. Cool.
Yeah, man. So this Ray Campanero, the Ray Campero is Espadín. Okay. Espadín is, let me just say a little bit about mezcal, just so you know this. So tequila is made, and mezcal is made from agave. Tequila is made from one species of agave called blue agave, Weber agave, okay? Mezcal can be made from dozens of different species of agave. Most of the mezcal available in the United States comes from Oaxaca region of Mexico.
Yeah.
And most of the mezcal is made from a variety of agave called Espadín, okay? And that's what this is. It's a very, it's an easygoing, friendly agave. It's good for the business too, because it's a very short growing period. It takes about 8 years, whereas some agave can take 30 years to grow.
Right,
okay.
Right.
So this one, which we're gonna get into, we're gonna do a little nose on this first. So when I always say, when nosing the spirit, you don't want to ram your nose in there because burn out. Just open your nose, your mouth a little bit, and just breathe the whole thing in. Okay. And getting that? Oh man.
Yeah.
Like
delicious.
that is, I'm getting that a little bit of olive brine, getting that like some straw. Oh, I'm excited to drink it. All right, here we go. Get it in there. Get all around your palate in there. So what are you getting, Evan, on this flavor-wise?
No. Oh, God. Okay. I mean, I always, obviously that what you prefaced all this with was it's really smoky. But it also like has like a little sweetness to it also. It tastes like a little like berry to me, but I'm not like I wouldn't say I have like a super developed palate.
No problem.
When we were talking about like doing an interview, like I was like, oh yeah, there was a couple of things that I was like, I'm not like the biggest drinker in the world at this point, and I don't have like really refined ability to like pull out notes and stuff. So I used to work at Elvez, which I think you'll probably know because I started in Philly. So like when did you work there?
When did you work there?
Oh my God, I worked there for a lot of years, or I guess it was like only 3 years probably all told. But between probably 2007, 2006 probably, and 2009.
This is Steven Starr Place, right?
Yeah, Steven Starr Place.
My brother worked there. John Taylor, his name is. Yeah.
Oh wow! We very well may have crossed paths.
I think he's a little bit. He might be a couple years after you, but he was a bartender there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a really cool place, but we had like 100 and 200 different tequilas and mezcals like around the bar. So at that time in my life, I was drinking a lot and like spent a lot of time sort of analyzing different spirits. But I just don't do it that often, to be honest. Yeah. So it's,
And look, it's not, I'm the same way with me with food sometimes. Like, I don't know what I'm tasting, but I know if I like it. I mean, and you talk about places like that. So, here's the thing, Evan, with mezcal, it was not available in the United States. There was a guy named Ron Cooper, okay? He's an artist from Southern California. Great guy. He used to travel through Mexico all the time. And back around 1994 I guess it was. He started importing mezcal to the U.S. called Del Maguey. Del Maguey is one of the biggest brands of mezcal in the world. And Ron kind of started it, but in those early days, it was pretty shitty. Some of the mezcal, if you could get it here. And really, in the last 10 years, the quality level has gone up. And now there's also a downside to it. I mean, the big conglomerates are moving in, and a lot of these small mezcal producers are getting put out of business and all that. But wait, my director's coming. Oh, I've already bummed everybody out at the top of the show. Sorry, I can't talk about the capitalist pigs that have gone down.
Farmers and everything. Yeah.
Actually, the farmer, it's still, most of the mezcal is made by individual families and stuff, but it's being, there's big companies that are buying it from them. My concern is that eventually they're going to go, let's just get rid of them and we'll do it ourselves. But well, I'll have you on the podcast and we can talk about that. We'll get real. All right, this one's good. We got a bunch of questions coming in for you.
Cool.
One is, I don't know if this is real or not, but from Jason Jonigkeit.
Oh no, what's this guy got to say? It's my brother.
What's your family like? Are they actors? Are they actors too?
What? Jason? What is he saying? No. Nobody else in my family is in the arts at all. My dad worked in insurance, and my mom worked at a pool company. And my dad spent his life working for MetLife and then Texas Life. My brother's an accountant. So weird.
Who's Jason? Is that your brother?
That's my brother. Yeah, I'm talking to him directly right now. You weirdo. And my sister's a school teacher, and they all still live in and around Langhorne and the place in Bucks County where I grew up, and they're the best, and I see them all the time. Hi guys.
By the way, you went to Neshaminy High School. You mentioned Langhorne. Didn't the singer Langhorne Slim go to Neshaminy High School as well?
Is that a fact?
I think he did.
I don't know.
Yeah. We got a note here from Amy Yakuboff. It says, Evan, I totally dig that wallpaper.
Oh, thank you. So this is a company called Farrow & Ball that makes this wallpaper. And they were generous enough to provide a lot of the wall coverings in our home. Because we did this big spread with Domino Magazine and West Elm, and my wife and I, when we were doing a renovation of our house last year, and that is all like this hand painted wallpaper from this company called Farrow & Ball, which is based in England, and they're super cool. You should check them out.
It looks great, yeah. Which you mentioned your wife, and that brings up a question we got from Scott from Brooklyn. Wants to know, what's Thanksgiving dinner like with David Mamet? So you're go ahead, you go.
I mean, we actually haven't spent Thanksgiving with my wife's dad, but we every time we're in LA, we hang out and have dinner together, and it's a really lively, super fun environment to converse. One of the coolest things about Zasha's family is this like real paradigm of personalities that exist in her world and in her family, and they're all really come from different points of view about a lot of different topics, and it really is exciting, cool conversation, and nothing's off limits and nothing's off the table, from politics to whatever's happening socially and the arts and et cetera. Like, we kind of hash it all out, and it's a really fun conversation.
Yeah, amazing. So we got Nikki Blandis has a question. Have you ever acted in a David Mamet play?
I have not. It's never happened. It's never happened. No, I mean, he's written some amazing plays, obviously. I mean, it's never
happened. Not yet. Someday, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. No, Langhorne Slim went to Soulbury School in New Hope.
Oh, okay.
New Hope's outside of.
Yeah.
All right, we got a question. Well, hold on. Let me firing off too many questions here. I need some more mezcal. You So Matt, I went down the YouTube rabbit hole recently
Right.
with Alec Baldwin.
Oh.
So I just there's certain scenes with Alec Baldwin that I can watch over and over. It's the one from where he plays the doctor. I think it was called Malice, when he says, "People pray to God, I am God." But then the other one obviously is the classic scene from Glenn Ross, and David Mamet wrote that, right? Always be closing. Put that coffee down. And it's some of that movie. Obviously the acting is fucking incredible, but the writing is. Do you ever just? He's your father-in-law, and he's I would say one of the greatest playwrights we've had.
Amazing shit. And that's one of the really amazing things that he wrote. He's, it's so funny because like he's my father-in-law. Like, we don't really like rehash. I guess it's like
you don't show up and be like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, like talk about like all the shit you've written. Like it's the same thing with my family when I go home. Like nobody's like, "Oh, so what happened on set?" Like, what happened while you were making that thing? It's just like, "Oh, it's so good to see you. How's so and so, and what's with what, and how's life, and oh, can you believe this is happening and that's happening and the world's all fucked up?" Like that's what we talk about. We don't really, talk about what we've done in the past. We sort of like are kind of more forward looking, and like what you're working on now, who you're working with, and that sort of like generates those sort of anecdotes. But yeah, Alec Baldwin's an amazing actor too. And he's a really great guy. He's been super generous with his time on a couple of things that I've worked on. He was really generous with this big ACLU benefit that I wound up producing. In addition to acting, I will also have this whole other sort of life that's sort of materialized for myself that is producing live events. Like I produced the ESPY Awards one year with a bunch of folks, and produced a bunch of TV and film and stuff like that also. But Alec was really generous, and he wound up hosting a segment of this benefit for the American Civil Liberties Union that we did when Trump put forth the travel ban to the Middle East when he was relatively new into office. And he's just been really a real sort of proponent of being on the right side of history for most things.
Yes, absolutely. I want to encourage everybody out there, by the way, again, we're having our contest tonight, Flaviar membership. The way to win it tonight is in the comments section. The 3 best Philadelphia Phillies of all time. Winner will be chosen by myself and Evan. And the tiebreaker is greatest Met of all time. If you can think of a Met that is great, put that in there. So it's put 3 Phillies, 1 Met. If you have any questions for Evan or myself, or you want to unburden yourself, if
I just want to like give a little prompt for the best Met of all time. That it's not just numbers that make the best player of all time. It's also about being a leader and a role model. It's a lot of
character.
things.
You're saying character counts here.
Important, very important.
Okay, I don't give a shit because I'm from Philly. We don't care about character. Just play. No, I'm kidding. You know what's funny about the Philly thing is Philly tends to not like the high character guys. The guys they set, the ones that they really embrace. Like.
You guys
I'm not saying he's not a character, but Iverson, like everybody loved Iverson, Lenny Dykstra, all these guys. Yeah.
In the villain, and that's I'll tell you. One time I was at a Phillies Mets game, and if you're a Mets fan in Philadelphia, I should know better than to wear a Mets jersey to.
Oh yeah.
Like stupid. But it's at the time I'm at Temple. I'm in college, and I go to the game with a bunch of Philly friends, like from New Chamonix. So like a bunch of people I was in high school with, but my college girlfriend's with us, and it was 2002, 2003, something in there, and they still served glass bottles at the stadium.
Oh, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, it was a bad idea, and so. The Mets won that particular game. Rarity, I know. But So we're walking out of the stadium, and I have my Mets jersey on, and this guy's just razzing me, and he's like, Mets suck, Mets suck, Mets suck. And I'm like, well, scoreboard says otherwise.
Oh, boy.
Guy takes his glass bottle, throws it at a group of us. It smashes and cuts my girlfriend's leg open.
Oh, my God.
And it becomes mayhem everywhere. And me and my high school buddies were just like fighting these guys and just like, we're in the middle of it. It's par for the course at any Phillies event you might go to. The guy and his friends all wound up in the drunk tank, and we all were let off scot-free because there were 2 off-duty police officers from New Jersey standing right next to it when it happened. And they were like, you guys are fine. Get out of here. You guys, you're going to jail. And I was like, justice. It was amazing.
It comes along. When I was a kid, I used to go to Eagles games all the time. We had season tickets with my dad, and this was at Veterans Stadium. And people know Veterans Stadium famously had a courtroom in the basement because it was pretty crazy, and it could get bad at Eagles games during that. But I just remember when you're saying like that shows how different the times were. So if someone had another team's jersey on, like I remember one time a guy had a Giants jersey on, there had to be 20 roofers, Philly roofers, just beating the shit out of this guy, right? And he's a bloody mess. And then the cops come running up, and they all he started it, and they grab the Giants guy, the cops, and they're dragging him out. I was like, oh boy. Well, let's get to our next mezcal here. This is the second one is Alipoos. Alipoos, that's how we pronounce this one. This is a brand that's been around. It's been about 1999. They started with this one. Now, the guy that makes this, a young guy, Rodolfo Juan Juarez, makes this very young. I think he's probably in his early 30s or something. Oh, yeah, this is first thing you're going to get here is this is a fruity mezcal. Okay, you're going to get some fruit right there on the nose, but then now you're getting a little bit of that smoke. You getting any of that smoke scent?
Yeah. I mean.
Now on the palate with this reminds me of a Scotch. It's almost like a peatiness.
Yeah, it's super smooth, like when it first hits, and then there's this like aftertaste that comes in.
Yeah.
After it hits the back of your throat.
Yeah, I also find it's very viscous in the mouth. It's got a kind of a thicker mouthfeel to it, and then a little bit of like brininess, like almost like a sea air sort of quality to it. But it's an interesting mezcal. I enjoy it. This is about 47.5% alcohol, so that's 95 proof. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty complicated. I'll say that for it. It's like it has like 3 different phases of experience from when it first hits your mouth.
Well, that's generally something. Well, that's why you get you'll hear the term. You hear it's spirits. You hear with wine the finish.
Yeah.
Because the way that it interacts with your palate, with your taste buds, it's a progressive thing. You're going to get right up front. You're generally going to get that alcohol hit, right? And then once that sort of dissipates a little bit, that's when the flavors start to wash over you a little. And then, the finish is that now it's starting to disappear, and other notes that were maybe hidden earlier on start to reveal themselves. And that's why they say, sometimes you don't get that. So if you ever hear someone say like, oh, it has a lingering finish, as opposed or it could be like the finish is like that. There is really no finish. This one definitely is lingering.
Oh yeah, it lingers. Yeah.
This is a lingerer. Can we dub it a lingerer? Yeah, we can do whatever the hell we want. Oh my God, questions are coming in. Chris Maxwell. Oh, this isn't a question. He said, get Evan. I can't get Evan to do anything, man. I could ask him, Chris Maxwell. I could ask him. You look like a man that's going to be get. Did you just hear what he did to the dude who threw the bottle at his girl? Kick the shit out of that guy. I'll ask Evan gently to give us a glimpse. By the way, I love when I ask these questions and I have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm just hoping that whoever's sending me these questions is vetting them. so we're not getting punked. Give us a glimpse into the Empty Man. The comic series is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that is gonna be. I mean, that we made in South Africa 4 years ago in October, and the reason I know that is because I was in South Africa and I needed to get back for my wedding, which was on, or I guess it was in September, because I needed to get back for my wedding, which was October 1st, and they wouldn't like guarantee that I would be back for my wedding.
But you're an actor. There had to be a body double, right, for the wedding?
And so it was just a little hairy, but it was like, it's gonna be fine, but we're not gonna put it in writing. And Zosh and I were like, what do we do? And it was like, you know, studio movie, could be really cool, based on this comic book. It's a really interesting taught world in the comic book, but I don't know what it is, you know, because I haven't seen any of it, essentially.
So this is a movie that's been shot, but it's not out yet.
It's a movie that's been shot that was supposed to be released this fall, but it was a pretty expensive movie, so I don't know if they're gonna release it straight to VOD or, you know, with one of the streaming services or whatever the case, or if they're gonna wait until theaters start to open back up and whatever. But that's I just don't know. I mean, we've been waiting on that movie for a while, but here's hoping. It was fun to shoot. South Africa was beautiful.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Mary Becker wants to know, as an actor from Philly, are you a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I am a fan of It's Always Sunny. You know, I'm not like a DI, like I haven't really gotten that fully engrossed in that many TV shows, honestly. Like it was like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, and now I'm like I'm rewatching The Wire. I watched The Wire all the way through once, but now like kind of coming back to it because Zasha's never watched it. But It's Always Sunny was something that I loved every time I happened upon it when I had cable, and now like I'll throw it on for like a feel good once in a while, but like I don't know it.
It's not a show that you're So yeah. Mary, just so you know, Mary Becker, if you're a Sunny fan, here's the book. The 7 Secrets of Awakening the Highly Effective 4-Hour Giant Today. Gang writes a self-help book. The gang didn't write the self-help book. This guy did. So anybody, plug for the book. I don't make any money if you buy it, but it's a funny book. I wrote it. About Sunny. Yeah. That's what I do in my spare time. Write books. Okay. Who has it got? Oh, we got Stephanie from Santa Monica said, are you a fan of Girls? Of course, your wife, Sasha, was on Girls. Of course, she's going to say, yeah. Wait a second. No.
I mean, it wasn't for me. You know, it wasn't like a show that was sort of written for my demographic specifically. It's a coming of age for these 4 women in New York from these various different backgrounds, and they're all pretty eccentric in their own way, and I understand why that show was groundbreaking and why it was so cool. And the writers on that show are incredibly gifted, and I really, really like the show. But it's not. It's clear that that's not like a show for you, Evan. When I like rattle off Sopranos, even though Eileen Landris, who's an amazing producer, produced both of those shows, Girls and The Sopranos, it was totally for, you know, Zosh as Shoshana is iconic. You know, she's amazing, and Lena's brilliance is amazing, and Allison and Jemima, they're all like really incredible artists and talented. And I like the show very much, but it's not like, you know, it wasn't the thing I like loved the most, or I had to tune in this week and. I
did watch. I think I watched all of Girls.
Happening? Yeah. Yeah, down the road I did, and it would have been something that I would have been like, you know what? I'll wait till it's all out and then I'll binge it. It was like that kind of show for me, as opposed to I know people that were like, like every episode that came out was a huge deal. And it was a great cultural phenomenon, and I think it's an amazing show, and then it'll, I think, hold up, over time.
And I certainly think it's one of the, to me, not by no means is HBO done, but that was certainly before Netflix and Hulu and Amazon got in the game. I mean, the destination for quality television was HBO, and I feel like Girls was sort of was one of the last sort of flagship shows of that era. That probably started with Sopranos, and then
I would agree with you, just based on the fact that they were also towards the tail end of that premium cable world before the streaming giants all descended upon the masses. And because they're still making really terrific shows on HBO, like I May Destroy You, I think is one of the coolest shows out there right now. And they've made a lot of really cool shows. But when you think about like TV and like film and what it's been like, I remember when I was growing up, I watched TGIF. You know what I mean? And those were the shows I got to watch because they were what was on television. And then HBO started to crack it open, right? And you started to really get these cinematic experiences weekly. And that was groundbreaking. And Girls was definitely part of that first real wave of that. But now I just think that's become the new norm. They set the bar as to this is what television needs to be, or it's expendable. So it's totally was at the tail end of establishing what that bar is. But I think HBO is still making really cool stuff that lives up to that bar. I just think that all these other streaming services are also making stuff that are now
way at it. Yeah, I mean, if only they could create a pandemic where we couldn't leave the house and they already did.
Oh, right.
I've watched every fucking show ever made. No. In fact, so even doing this, we're talking about shows that aren't for us. So somebody was on, Ben Norris was on recently, and he's on Never Have I Ever, on Netflix. So I'm like, all right, I got, whenever anyone comes on, I'm going to check out what they're doing. And this is a show about a sort of a coming of age show about this high school age girl. And so I watch it, and then next thing you know, I watched the whole goddamn season. I'm like, I watched this show is not for me, but I watched it.
Right. No, I mean, and that's the way all good television is. There are elements of every show that are going to speak to you and going to be part of your experience of whatever it is, being in your 20s and having these uncomfortable moments that you have to figure your way through and sort of overcome. Even though it's not tailored to me, and so I wasn't one of the early adopters that was waiting every week for it. Once I got into Girls, and once I get into most shows, you commit to it for a few episodes, you generally are going to buy in, right?
Yeah.
Well-made.
There's some exceptions.
Of course. No, I mean, there's also, if it's well-made. If it's not well-made, and there's just a miscommunication creatively from actor to writers to filmmakers, et cetera, then you're just I'm good. I'm going to move on. My time's too valuable. There's too many options out there. The bar's been set. This is now what I expect. And I'm either going to find that, or I'm just going to hang out and
yeah.
watch
I mean,
movies.
there's been a couple of shows that I've stumbled upon where I would put it this way: I'd rather watch Your Last Scene in Bone Tomahawk on perpetual loop than watch those shows. That's not giving away Bone Tomahawk. Not saying that it ends badly, but for your character, watch Bone Tomahawk. I really do want people to watch Bone Tomahawk. Watch it, and then next week's show, comment to me just if I was exaggerating, just how disturbing that movie. It's a great movie, but it's it was very few movies stayed with me as much as that movie, and that's it.
There's so this other movie that I just had at Sundance this January was the last sort of like public gathering we were all able to, I was able to go to, was the end of January, and it's this film called The Night House that's coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but all I can say is that's another movie that it stars Rebecca Hall. It was directed by this guy named David Bruckner, and it is an incredibly disturbing movie in a way that hangs with you long after you leave the theater in a similar way to Bone Tomahawk. For different reasons, but like it gives you heebie-jeebies for sure.
Do you find that during this period where, let's face it, you got to take care of your psyche during this time? I mean, it's a difficult time for everybody. Do you find yourself gravitating more towards lighthearted entertainment? Or are you able to get into that kind of stuff?
No, like me and Sasha and I have like a pretty good dialogue about where we're at. We've like made like a list of films that like we're sorry, I said something pop on my screen, that we like have wanted to watch for a really long time, that we've taken the opportunity to revisit, and so we get into some like sort of heavy films, and some, like I said, we're rewatching The Wire, but yeah, we also have definitely been doing a lot of like palate cleansers, like like The Good Place and Schitt's Creek, and like we've been watching some real crowd pleasers for ourselves to like just sort
lift
of
your mood. I mean, I find myself going back to The Office.
So much happening in the world right now that bums us out in such a big way, from politics and the social unrest that you spoke about at the beginning of this thing. Like, they're all real. It's all really happening, and we're so fortunate to be up here in upstate New York and like living this sort of ideal life. And it just, every day when you're inundated with all this information about what's going on in the world and what the state of our conversations are in general, it can really bum you out. And yeah, we've been making a conscious effort to like make sure we stay engaged creatively, help out in the ways that we're able to, just do whatever we can to make sure that we're not getting dragged down with it, and so that we're staying as buoyant as possible in the midst of this happening.
And it's very important. Again, when I talked earlier about doing this, another thing I will say about when I do this show every week, I can tell you this: I always feel better by the end than in the beginning. So it's the nice part of this show. I've got some comments going. Mia Apasone, I don't know if I'm saying that right, says, Evan, I love your wife Zasha. Since girls, you guys make a cute couple.
Thank you so much.
And then Aaron Sackman wants to know, do you have a preference between playing a villain or a hero?
I mean, I always think that villains are generally more interesting because they're generally working from a place of pain, and like, it's a more complex thing that people try to cover up, and that's kind of a interesting thing to figure out as an actor as to how to cover up that pain. And so for me, like, that's what I would probably gravitate towards were I to control all of Hollywood. But so
okay.
But playing heroes is obviously, I don't know, have I played many heroes? I've like played like the nice guy. Like the nice guy a lot, and that's cool, but yeah, it feels like not quite as dimensional.
Okay, got it. Now we're going to get into the third and final mezcal of the evening. I want to remind everybody out there, you got 3 minutes. If you've not yet put in your entry to win the Flaviar membership. Top 3 Philadelphia Phillies of all time. Tiebreaker is the best Met of all time. You got 3 minutes. We're closing it off, and then we're going to give this thing away. We're going to wrap it up. And Evan and I are going to a rave later. Ah, shit, we can't. Damn you, COVID.
Well, again. Okay.
So Mezcal Vago is going to be the Elote is the one we're going to do here. Now, I'm a big fan of Vago. Judah Cooper is the owner. He lives out here not far from me. And he was in Oaxaca, Mexico, and he got hurt, and he was in a hospital, and he fell in love with the nurse who treated him. Right?
Whoa.
Her dad, Aquilino Garcia, was a farmer who also made mezcal. And that's Judah fell in love with not only his daughter, but his mezcal. And then next thing I got a business partner, and then they started this business. And I think it was like 2013, the first bottles of Mezcal Vago arrived in Texas. And this is, so I was the spirits columnist for the Rob Report, which, is the Bible of the Illuminati. And, and even those rich folks, I've written about Vago numerous times because it really is a delightful high-end mezcal. And they do another nice thing down there is every agave plant that they remove, they plant 3 more. And the idea is that by 2025, they can end the use of wild agave, because now they're just going out and getting agave wherever they can. A lot of these brands, and it sort of decimates the agave in the area. So it's a cool thing they're doing down there. So this one is great. It's elote, and let's get on the nose on this. Okay, the thing about this is a very corn-centric agave. Okay. It's they've infused this with roasted corn, and it is.
Oh, you can taste it.
Right? Do you get that?
You totally.
Corn's right there. I mean, it's front and center, and there's a nuttiness to this agave. It's very light.
It's great. Yeah.
It's still. I mean, I love this mezcal, and you could pick this out of a lineup. Because if I put a bunch of mezcal in front of you and I said, which one of these has the roasted corn in it, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get that flavor.
Yeah, that's really good.
I think all 3 of the mezcals that we had tonight are Espadín, which I said, as I told you, that's the variety of agave. That's I think 90% of the mezcal you're gonna get in the U.S. is Espadín. This one is, let me ask you, of the 3 that we had, Evan, which one would you say had the highest alcohol content?
I would say the second one.
It's not this. That's very surprising. And that's why I did it, because this seems so light, the Vago, right?
Wait, it's this?
This is 50%. This is 108 proof, or 100.8 proof. It's 50.4% alcohol.
Jesus Christ.
Right? And it's you don't get it. You don't get that.
Totally don't.
It's a delicate mezcal.
Yeah. No, the second one, the Alipoos, definitely like the way it lingered that we were talking about, like that like felt more alcoholic, like it felt like it was it was doing more to me.
I think you said that was the most, did you say complicated or cut? There was a lot going on in that one.
A lot going on, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this one, again, it's very, the mouth feels very silky and very light, and but yeah, this has the highest alcohol. Oh, I was realizing I'm talking about that. I'm emoting. I'm like, am I getting too excited about mezcal right now? I need to get out more. Can we go to a rave? Come on.
I know, man.
Dude, I'm getting in the car right now. I could be in upstate New York. I'm in Venice.
Come on.
Let's have a party, man. We got some more comments. Aaron Sackman, who just asked you whether you like playing a hero or villain, said, if you could have played any role in any movie.
Oh my God.
Is that something you ever think about? I mean, let me think about how I could see you. I could see you as.
You go.
What could I see you in? The problem is once, if you think about great roles, you always identify them with the like I mentioned Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen. Who else could play that? I'm sure there's tons of actors that could have done that, but I'll never think of anybody else.
Yeah, I mean it's a really like when you're like watching or experiencing a film, like you're experiencing that whole experience is informed by the people that are playing those roles. So if I like a character inside of that script that person is embodying, like I don't really imagine what I would do differently. I just take it in and try to enjoy it and watch it for what it is. Now, like there are a bunch of plays that like, you know, that I haven't seen productions of or I have seen productions of, but I was like, oh, there's other things that can be done with that because that's the nature of play as opposed to film. But yeah, in terms of films, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think every actor wants to play their version of the Joker, right? Like, I just, the other day, I was like, you know, watched the Tim Burton, the original Batman. And I'm like,
was there a Joker in that one?
Yeah. That's Jack Nicholson. So,
oh
like,
my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing.
That guy.
Yeah, he's you're my number one guy. You know, he really goes for it, and it's like so free, and it's like such a fun exercise in what an actor is able to do and how they can bring a character off of the page in a way that's kind of remarkable. And yeah, of course, like Heath Ledger does it really well, and then you know, Joaquin did it really cool. But there's something about that character, right? That like I said earlier, of playing a villain that's like hiding their pain with something and using something to deflect that pain that is really a huge opportunity to do something super interesting that's rooted in deep truth. And that's a rare opportunity for any actor to be able to do. So yeah, sure, I'd play the Joker.
Play the Joker. I did I was once a bar out here in Santa Monica called O'Brien's, and Michael Keaton used to hang out there, and my friend owned the bar, so I met him a few times, and then I was flying to New York, and I get on a plane, and Michael's sitting right next to me on the plane. So we imbibed from LA to New York. He was going, his son was in a band and they were playing CBGB. So CBGB was still around.
Awesome.
And his son's band's playing CBGB. And we drank on that plane and we got to New York, and Michael said, he took me into the city, he had a car, pick him up, takes me to the city. And he makes me promise him that I'm going to come to CBGB. And of course, yeah. So I went out and I met some friends in the city. And I didn't tell them. We had dinner, and then I said, well, let's go to CBGB. I didn't tell them that who we were meeting. You couldn't have scripted it any better, Evan. We showed up. Michael's leaning on the bar. The band's not on yet. He's leaning on the bar, and we come in, and he sees, and he's just like, he's very animated, you know, and he's like, hey, and we go over, he's like, hey, hugs me, and he's, hi, I'm Michael, and this is, and my friend turns to me and she whispers in my ear, she says, he's Batman. And that's like, and it's that iconic, because everybody knows that moment. Like, of all the Batman movies, and there's been amazing stuff, to me, it's that first one when he comes down and he's upside down, the guy says, who are you? Who are you? He says, I'm Batman. And everybody knows it. So do you ever think to yourself, like, you gotta have...
We would just rewatch that recently. I've been on a real Tim Burton kick. I've been like working, like, you know, doing a bunch of different things to fill my time during quarantine, and one of the things is stop motion animation, and so the making of a lot of things, and obviously Tim Burton's done stop motion animation. So I just wanted to rewatch that film, and there's something so great about Michael Keaton playing that role, because you're everyman. He's like really affable and relatable, and so he's just a normal guy. And then it's sort of evolved, even in Batman Returns. Like you like watch like the evolution of it becoming a superhero, which is not what he is in that first film. He's just like this he's this
a dude, yeah,
rich guy. And like he's like this fucked up kid who's like this bored rich guy who's like, I need to do something with what I got. And he's got all the machinations to like make himself a superhero, but he in and of himself is just a normal guy. And that's what makes
that's Michael Keaton. That's him in real life too, by the way. I mean, that night after the show, he had rented out in a restaurant a room, and he insists that we all go back there. And I remember by the end, my friends were just blown away, and they said he might be the nicest celebrity he's definitely up there for sure. All right, well, listen, we got. I'll keep you all night, man, but we got that rave to go to later. So we got some entries coming in. Holy crap! All right, okay. Do we know? Do we have a general idea? Should I just start throwing them out, some of the entries, and we'll decide as we go a little bit? Here we go.
Yeah, let's decide as we go.
Oh, okay. Chris Maxwell says Steve Carlton, pitcher, lefty. Lefty. Mike Schmidt and Pete Rose.
Controversial. I like all three.
Okay, I mean they're okay. Let me see what else. But Mark Becker comes in with Chase Utley. Ooh, I love me some Chase. They did win the World Series, and Chase
was a pain in the ass, that guy.
Chase Utley, Mike Schmidt, and Steve Carlton. All right, so who can we agree on? Are we going to agree on you and I? Mike Schmidt's got to be in there.
He's got to be in there. Yeah.
Carlton?
I would think so. I mean, he's got the stats.
Okay. All right. So then let's say we go Schmidt and Carlton, and then we'll figure out the third one. Sandy Abrams comes in with Schmidt, Carlton, and Robin Roberts. Now, very old player, but he was a Hall of Famer for the Phillies.
I don't know.
Okay. And I'm not going to tell you the Met tiebreakers yet, but Aaron Sackman, Schmidt, Utley, and Carlton. But Evan doesn't like Utley. Apparently doesn't like Utley.
I don't like him because he did us dirty. Like I'm a Mets fan, so you also have to like recognize the fact that I'm coming from a biased point of view.
Evan, think of me as your acting.
He's a terrific ball player.
You need to act like a Phillies fan for this.
Okay, I mean, he's a terrific ball player. I'm not your team, man. I'll let you.
You're going to defer to me. All right. Marie Fitzpatrick says Tug McGraw. Now, look, Tug McGraw had one of the greatest moments. And Tug, when you talk about the whole package, the character.
That guy, I mean, that guy holds up for sure.
She said Tug, Schmidt, and Rose. Okay. Here's the thing with Pete Rose. Pete Rose, one of the greatest ball players of all time. Even forgetting the gambling and all this other stuff, we got to throw Pete Rose out because there wasn't.
He's more of a Cincinnati Red. Or is that what you're gonna say? Like,
well, I was gonna go darker. I mean, there were charges recently, like accusations about underage girls, and so Pete Rose.
Yeah.
All right. Ed Abrams says McGraw, Schmidt, and Schilling. Schilling was great, but I hate that guy. I'm sorry, I can't. No,
I don't like Kurt Schilling either.
Yeah, Kurt Schilling. Candid Power, Schmidt, Carlton, Cole Hamels. Not greatest.
But he's a classy guy. I mean, the Cole Hamels. Classy guy.
Tony Passay. Bryce Harper. He's been on the team for a year. Yeah, come on. Get out of here.
I mean, Utley is, obviously superior to Cole Hamels and Bryce Harper in terms of long-term Philadelphia Phillies. And Tug McGraw also. Classy dude. All
right, here's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm calling it. But now we're gonna go to the Mets, and you'll make the decision on the tiebreaker.
Okay.
I'm calling it Schmidt, Carlton, and Utley.
Okay.
Go
Agreed.
Schmidt, Carlton, and Utley.
Agreed.
And now we're gonna go. Now this is for you, Evan.
Yeah.
Mark Becker's tiebreaker, greatest Met ever, is Dwight Gooden.
Okay.
Okay. We got another Schmidt, Utley, Carlton, Aaron Sackman, best Met ever, Mike Piazza. Okay, don't give us right. He's mulling it over, right? I can see his brain's going. All right. Then we got. Oh man, I missed the Tug McGraw one, but yeah, okay. And then we got another Schmidt, Utley, and Carlton. Christopher Blade. Christopher Blade's tiebreaker is. I think he's trying to appeal to you from the acting standpoint because of Seinfeld. But Keith Hernandez.
Ooh.
Keith Hernandez.
You know what? That's tough. I'm gonna be honest. All right. So. Yeah, Dwight Gooden, terrific baseball player. He's got his own complications in terms of legacy, in terms of like what he's got going on. Mike Piazza, he's the gold standard for all of baseball. You can say he's maybe the best catcher ever to play the game of baseball, and you would have a hard time arguing against it based on numbers alone. But when you talk about the Mets and when you talk about that like iconic run in '86 and Keith Hernandez and how now he's the announcer for the New York, you know what? I'm overthinking this. It's Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza's greatest Met.
Well, let me ask you. Who's your favorite? Who would you have named?
I would have named Gary Carter. I would have named that Gary Carter is in terms of like representing a sports organization, being a great player, having iconic moments, and like rising to the moment, which Utley, to his credit, was able to do. He was able to rise to the moment. When opportunity knocked, he was there to answer the call. And you also he was a standard bearer for like what it was to be an athlete and how it was you were gonna, comport yourself in the public eye. And to me, that's a really difficult thing to do, and to do it well and to do it as a leader is impressive. And Mike Piazza did it also, but for me, and it was also in my formative years, and I have my own sort of story there. But for me, that's who was my greatest Met ever. Yeah.
Okay. And we also got
it's Mike Piazza for sure.
Okay, so we also got to go. They got Darryl Strawberry, was great.
Darryl Strawberry.
Tom Seaver. Tom
Seaver is terrific. I mean, he's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. I mean, but yeah, I mean, all told, Piazza's gonna beat out Tom Seaver, I think.
I'm not a Mets fan, but my favorite Met was Lenny Dykstra, because he was a Philly too.
Man, I mean, I love Lenny Dykstra. He said some really stupid shit in the last couple years, and
he's out of his mind. Yeah,
he's out of his mind. I'm also a big Howard Stern fan.
That's me too.
So I love Howard Stern. So I hear Lenny Dykstra all the time, but I also
I'm hearing him talk about Robin in my head right now. I'm it's gross.
But Lenny Dykstra's also said some really dumb things that I completely just disagree with the messaging of. And he also just openly admits, yeah, of course I did steroids. Everybody did steroids. It was the '90s. I wanted to play every game. So
one of the greatest quotes ever, I mean, by greatest, I mean honest, was when he bulked up for the Phillies and they asked him how he bulked up, and he said, "Magic vitamins, dude. Magic vitamins." That's what he said.
I wanted to play every day. Yeah, I mean, he wrote about it in his book. I don't know if you've read his book, but yeah, I think it's just called Hard as Nails, Tough as Nails, something like that.
Nails or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's just Nails, maybe. But I read his book, and it's a great rendition of those '80s and '90s teams and what he did and how he became an everyday player and what his experiences were. And it's insane. I mean, there's my dog.
We got company.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just insane the lifestyle he lived and the way he was sort of living his life. It's wild. But he was an incredible ball player, and he raced. I mean, the guy.
He was like Pete Rose in that regard. And I think maybe some of those guys are just damaged guys, but they're a hell of a ball player. So, wait, so we went with Piazza, right? That was what you were saying?
Yeah, Piazza, absolutely.
Okay, so the winner is Aaron Sackman, who said Schmidt, Utley, and Carlton. Aaron Sackman, congratulations.
Aaron Sackman, good job, man.
Flaviar member. They'll message you about it. And Jesus, I gotta. It's time to go do some eating and drinking and all this stuff. So I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in. Evan Jonigkeit, man, this has been a real pleasure hanging out with you.
Yeah.
For the last hour. And where can people find you? Social media, any of that stuff?
Yeah, you can find me, Jonigkeit.
I followed you today. I followed you on social media.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, let's keep it going.
I'm expecting big things from you on there. Hold on.
I'm gonna keep doing my thing, and I'm just really appreciative. It's great to meet you guys, and if you're in New York, hit me up once this all the craziness is past, and we're in the next chapter. I'm here.
Are you saying this to me or everybody watching? Because I think you should be saying it to everybody watching. Everybody watching, you're going to go hang out with them.
My brother's watching, and that guy. I'll see you, man. I'll see you soon.
This has been a lot of fun, man. And again, thank you to everybody out there. We're back next week. I don't even know who the guest is. I'm not going to tell you. It's going to be a surprise. Somebody great, I'm sure. Is it another Evan?
Probably not.
Philly guys. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a safe and happy weekend, and I'll see you next week.